well, why this? Well, why that?
And not just that either, but even though there's a lot of really good actors in this, no one seems like they're the really good actors that they are. I don't know if it's what happened here. Part of it is that the script, the actual dialogue in it is so bland. It's just not, when it tries to be funny, it's not funny at all.
Boy,
there's
ever.
Tons of just like exposition speeches that just go on and on.
I mean, the extent of humanity and humor is Justin Timberlake going, God damn it. It's funny because, like, for years people try to convince me that Justin Timberlake is a good actor. And I was like, look, he's not embarrassing himself for what he is. He's okay. And then with Social Network, I started to think, well, you know what? Maybe he's starting to come into it. You see this movie, you go like, no, he ain't. He ain't no good actor.
It's not that he's a bad actor. He just doesn't have much range.
Well, that's the thing.
And this is outside of his range.
I would put it all on him, but I know Amanda Seyfried's a good actor. And
Cillian Murphy's a good actor.
Cillian Murphy was the only actor in this whole thing who I thought was actually, I felt something for.
Even
I
thought was kind of just like, okay.
But yeah, it's another case where he's written with no real dimension. It's like at times they want to make him who's the detective in Les Miserables, because as I thought,
I can't remember the name.
Me either, because I keep wanting to say Jean Valjean, but I think that's the hero.
But I know the type of thing you're talking about, where it's the detective who's really great at their job and they're really into it, but then they end up dealing with someone they're chasing who's really good at doing what they do, and puts them in a position where they have to question the righteousness of their police work. They're like, well, wait, why would that guy have done that? Why? And this is one of these, because like early on, there's a situation where Justin Timberlake could have just left him to die. His time was almost up. And instead, he stopped to give him a few hours so that he wouldn't. And you think they're going to explore that, right? Like, wouldn't that be important?
Sure. Well,
you
do have his black second in command kind of go like, hey, well, that guy kind of saved you. Shut up!
Yeah, and it's
all right.
So what they end up creating in Cillian Murphy, a really not terribly interesting character, when they have every opportunity to do it.
The main, I mean, if you want to call him the main bad guy, the rich guy, Amanda Seyfried's dad.
Yeah,
he's
Vincent Carthizer.
Yeah, he's just so underacting what little is there that it's just like every time you see him, like you feel kind of oily, but nothing else. It's like, I don't understand how this guy works. I mean, he speaks so stiffly. Who? Not only who is he? What is he?
Right.
The other villains, Alex Pettyfer and his gang of British gangsters, which make no sense.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, these guys just show up whenever it's convenient, push people around, but then they aren't really that hard to take out. I mean, it was just
because these people aren't really characters on the whole. They're really just metaphors for social issues. Like the criminal guys are just a symbol for the crime in the ghetto, and and the movie uses them to try and explain how that works in relation to capitalism and why they're there and why they tend to stick to the ghetto. That's the only reason they're there.
Right.
They serve no real purpose in the story at all, other than to make sure you understand that, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that per se, except if that's your goal, to make it where that's ultimately what they represent, you do need to write some interesting things in there for them to do, and make some character qualities where we give a shit that they're even on screen. I mean, maybe because they have that terrible fucking actor playing the lead guy.
It's funny because
Alex
Pettyfer, he is British, and yet when he speaks with a British accent, it sounds totally fake.
Yeah.
Or maybe I guess he's just a fake guy.
I don't know.
I don't either. I don't know. It's funny because I didn't know till afterwards, but I kept watching, going like, shh. See, they should have got the guy who did Gattaca, because that guy knows how to make these kind of movies.
And it's the guy who
did Gattaca. I was like,
the thing is, it feels like one of those films where you know who did the cinematography?
Who?
Roger Deakins.
Really?
Yes, it was the first time he ever did it in digital too. He'd never made a film in digital before. It's always been on film. You're like, wow, Roger Deakins. He's like the Coen Brothers guy. I mean, he's like one of the best cinematographers alive. And there's nothing about the visuals in here that really make you take notice either.
No.
You're like, oh, okay, there's nothing really special about it. It's funny because like as much as like that overarching metaphor is going to irritate the shit out of some people, that was what kept me going through this whole movie. I mean, there's some decent action, and I love the Bonnie and Clyde angle of it, sort of Bonnie and Clyde / Robin Hood. I thought that's when the movie started to become fun for me.
I like a lot of things in this movie. There are pieces of it, conceptual pieces, that I think, okay, that's interesting. If you could develop that into something really good.
Yeah.
And that was just another one of those where I'm like, well, they could have developed that into something good, but they didn't. And it's almost like, to me, it was like that's too much. They got so many things going on now that they aren't doing right. throwing this in is just mucking up the waters as well.
Right.
But yeah, had it been something that focused more on that, sure.
It was oddly schizophrenic, but at the same time, okay, like I said, I think the biggest problem is he was so concerned with the metaphor, he forgot to make sure that everything else made sense, like as just a story. Because it was like, okay, now they have to go this way so we can talk about these other elements of capitalism and high finance and how that affects the poor. But how did that make sense in the story? And to me, I found it funny because it was so obvious that's what he was doing. I was just kind of following the film as a object lesson and like accompanied by a big cartoon, you know?
Okay.
it was like Schoolhouse Rock for me.
You know what, man? I've had those with movies where I'm like, look, I understand why people don't like this, but this works for me on this certain level.
Yeah.
And so you can't take that enjoyment away from me. And I'm like, hey, you know what? Even though I disagree with you, I'm happy that you got that from
right.
me.
It's even the low budget sense of it, the way they like just barely made things look futuristic.
Oh my God. Okay, so they bought a bunch of Dodge Chargers and just painted them with primer.
Yeah.
and said, okay, there you go. There's your future car.
Do you know what, with everything that together in this movie added up, what it reminded me of the most? Free Jack. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
I fucking think I nailed it on that
You're
one.
not wrong. You're not wrong at all.
The modern day Free Jack. And I like Free Jack. It's not a good movie,
no.
but I do enjoy it. I'm like, this is like one of those films that you go, are you sure Roger Corman didn't produce this?
I know. I you know what? People love to make dystopian futures, but I am big on like, hey, if you make a dystopian future, you got to prove to me within some reasonable doubt that the world could actually go this way.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't buying it the whole time, and they didn't do enough to support that.
Maybe if they had like really indulged in style, it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, I kept thinking that. I was like, you know what? If they developed it more style, some great dialogue,
but it's almost stylish less,
right?
It's very plain on the whole.
Because it's like, okay, who would set the system up but still live in a world like this? Like people will complain now like, oh, times are hard and economics and Americans don't have a toilet, but we still don't live like that.
Yeah. No, it's definitely supposed to be the dystopian a little further down the road, but like I said, I question how much the director even wants you to picture this as a plausible reality, and that's his bad. It's got to be both.
Well, I say go one way or the other. Either make it plausible or make it so fantastic that I'm dazzled by other things and aren't thinking about, aren't concerned about how.
If you're going to
implausible.
make this like just a crazy visual film with insane action and like, I'm not that concerned about the plausibility as long as it's really fun to watch. But this isn't really all that fun to watch. I mean, it has moments that I really genuinely enjoyed, and like I said, I was laughing in a positive way watching the way that what he was doing with this with the metaphor. But yeah, I can't. Anybody who just hates this film, I couldn't get mad at him or even argue with him. I'm
right.
like, it's not really a good film. It just had a bunch of stuff in it that was like pointed directly at me. It's like, Cyrus, come here. I made this for you, man. You're like, that's nice. Thank you. It's nice. It's like those mugs we got. It's like. But yeah.
So what do you give it?
Well, you know what? I was going back and forth between a low matinee and a high rental in the theater because they were, like I said, I never was bored by this. I had fun with it, even while going, it's so not good. But at the end, I have to just give it a high rental. Yeah, that's as kind as I can be, and even that's probably too kind. But hey,
yeah, I'm between a rental and a low rental because it's one of those where I'm like, it's a rental. I wasn't bored, but wow, was it stupid. I was like, when I saw the trailer for this, I thought this is going to be a meathead sci-fi movie with just a lot of gunplay. And then to watch, I'm like, well, it's not quite as meathead as I thought, and there's not even as much gunplay as I thought, but it's a lot dumber than I expected it to be. And I thought, it's just a rental. But the more we talk about it and I go over it again, start doing the autopsy, I'm like, how could I tell anybody? You know what? I'm going to stick with a rental. There's plenty of people who will red box this and go like, oh, I thought that was pretty good.
This movie could have used some Emilio Estevez. That's all I'm saying. And some Mick Jagger.
It's a Mick Jagger.
Yeah. Can you imagine
Justin Timberlake is no Mick Jagger. Let's put it that way.
If Cillian Murphy's boss was Mick Jagger, I would have been like, best movie ever. It's like, this is it. I give in. I win. This movie wins. Or they go off in the hills at the end and then find out there's a ragtag team led by Emilio Estevez. Yeah,
and
totally.
I mean,
free jacked again.
Did Andrew Niccol watch Over the Top right before he wrote this with the whole arm wrestling scene that goes
what
on?
is that?
I was like, talk about completely unnecessary in this whole thing.
Okay, so now there's the thing here, because you're like, here's the thing you keep looking up forward to, because they're like, your dad, Justin Timberlake, he was a badass. He was this
fighter.
Incredible fighter. Like, he was well known for it. He was so skilled. Like, people couldn't beat him. And you're like, cool. There's going to be some fucking bare-knuckled shit in here. It's going to be cool.
Especially there's a scene when Justin Timberlake, out of nowhere, beats the shit out of 5 guards and escapes.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, okay, well, clearly there's going to be more of this kind of stuff coming up, because that was cool. I mean, there's a scene later in the movie where he's like, does this really, he takes out this whole team of gangsters in seconds, and you're like, whoa, that was fucking badass.
Yeah.
But you're so disappointed when you realize the fighting they're talking about is just 2 guys holding hands and mentally battling over who gets to keep each other's hours on their arm. Like, really? That doesn't transfer
at all.
Let's put a little more warrior, a little less.
That's another one of those things where I'm like, okay, so now psychic battles are part of this story.
Yeah.
Yet with no setup, no development.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a whole movie in itself.
Yeah. Not that I don't want to see.
No, don't want to see. No.
So, someday we'll get the film that says shut down all the evils of Wall Street. That's actually a good movie at the same time. This is
you won't live to see it, but it'll happen.
Please take me home.
Can't do that.
Why?
You're keeping me alive.